6. You're welcome. Thank you. Warming waters in Florida. Right now on the National Weather Desk, ocean peril. As a new study identifies disturbing trends in ocean currents, ocean temperatures near Florida top a shocking 100 degrees.
Likely could become a world record.
Storm threat. We're watching for possible severe weather in the Midwest and disturbances brewing in the Atlantic.
But we still have plenty of time to watch this.
Radar reliability. What's being done to make sure you and your family know when weather threatens.
Funnel clouds and tornadoes happen below that we cannot actually see.
We'll check in on Michigan's blueberry season.
They're everywhere.
And a strange sight in Washington as a funnel cloud forms over the Capitol.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm Angela Brown. We begin with an alarming report that could impact everyone watching and also the world. Ocean currents in the Atlantic Ocean could collapse by the middle of the decade or possibly any time after 2025. This new study published in the journal Nature, the fallout could trigger an ice age in Europe, sea level rise on the eastern seaboard, and less precipitation out west. The system of currents carry warm water from the tropics to the North Atlantic, but fresh water from rapidly melting ice in Greenland is disrupting the saltwater balance in the ocean. Temperatures in the Atlantic have been especially warm from Newfoundland to Canada to Florida, one reading in the Keys topping 101 degrees, a potential record here. Meteorologist Ryan Miranda looks at this disturbing trend.
The Atlantic Ocean is incredibly warm, and looking out over the sea surface temperatures, that's their departure from the actual average. Notice there's little splotches of blue. Not a lot of there is below average. Most of it is in the yellow, orange, or even that red. That's temperatures being above average. In the case right off of Newfoundland in Canada, temperatures there are running around 10 degrees above average. It takes a lot of energy to warm up that much water, so that's pretty unprecedented. And this one specific area in South Florida, in Manatee Bay, they recorded an ocean temperature of 101.1 degrees at 5 feet below the surface. This is really the temperatures that you put your hot tub at, just incredibly warm. This likely could become a world record for the highest ocean temperature ever recorded, and this has not been very good for the coral reefs there. They just can't survive in all of this heat.
And we are already seeing the impacts of those warming waters on Florida's coral reefs. Some reefs already around the Keys are dead, and rescuers are trying to save others. Experts say those that are turning white could all die in a week. They are starving to death after expelling their food source in a process called bleaching. Coral is extremely sensitive to temperature change, and even an increase of just 5 degrees is enough to kill them. And all that warm water can make hurricanes more intense. And this morning, we're watching 2 potential storms in the Atlantic. Meteorologist Lauren Oleski is tracking the tropics for us this morning.
We're about 2 months into hurricane season, and of course, we continue to keep our eyes across the Atlantic basin. There are 2 waves that we are monitoring right now. One off the coast of Africa will be moving off towards the west-northwest. 30% chance of development through the next 7 days. Right now, I don't see this posing any major threat to the United States, but we still have plenty of time to watch this. And then there's another wave that's closer to the state of Florida right now, likely not going to develop into anything, but it could bring heavy rainfall to the Sunshine State over the next few days. Next name on our list is Emily and then Franklin. So as that wave that is close to Florida moves off towards the northwest, soggy conditions are expected mostly beginning tomorrow. Parts of Florida could see anywhere from about 1 to up to 3 inches of rain between today and the end of the weekend.
And we are also keeping a close eye on the threat of storms today in many parts of the country. The greatest risk is in southern Michigan, northern Indiana, and Ohio, including Detroit, Toledo, and South Bend. There is also a slight threat in the northern plains, especially central Nebraska. And we cannot forget about this heat. 46 million Americans are under alerts today as the intense heat moves east. But Phoenix here is still setting records, hitting 119 degrees yesterday. Phoenix has now hit 26 consecutive days over 110 degrees. And this caught folks by surprise right here, a rare sight, a funnel cloud over the Capitol building in Washington. Many people captured it on camera. Now, this is not a tornado. It formed in the sky and then disappeared after 5 to 6 minutes and never touched down. The last time D.C. saw a tornado was back in 2021. And you know, that storm system caused damage in the New York City area. This is Union City, New Jersey. Winds, as you see there, brought down trees, and heavy rain led to flooding. In Brooklyn, the National Weather Service confirms a microburst hit the Bensonhurst neighborhood. A microburst is a column of sinking air within a thunderstorm that can have wind speeds up to 100 miles per hour, although the Brooklyn storm was estimated at 60 to 70 miles per hour in that case. And Maine is getting a break today from the storms, but it won't last. Another round of rain brought flash flooding to Lewiston, Auburn region last night, and more storms are on the way for parts of the state on Thursday. Owen Kingsley reports from Maine. The washouts are getting expensive and the bills are still growing.
I couldn't believe it. We had to come look.
Residents along the border of Oxford and Franklin counties saw about another 4 inches of rain in just about 2 hours Monday night. Dixfield Town Manager Alicia Kahn says they've already suffered well over $1 million in washout damages in a storm in May.
We haven't been able to catch up since May.
This latest storm won't be cheap either.
Rough estimate, the lowest it would be probably $500,000 between digging up the road, repaving. It was catastrophic.
The mounting cost to repair everything in town is getting out of their control. Leaders are applying for FEMA funding. However, they say they don't qualify as a disaster because residents can still find ways around town.
We're hoping to see that cleaned up in the next few weeks, but at this point, again, it's not an emergency, so it'll probably be at least a month and a half before we hear anything.
About a dozen miles away in Jay, some roads are still impassable from the flash flooding in last month's storm. Representatives from FEMA were in Jay last week surveying the damage. The town faces about $4 million in damages that leaders say they cannot afford.
The town doesn't just have $4 million sitting around to be able to fix roads, so we definitely need this kind of federal funding for it.
The town is hoping to hear back about FEMA funding by the end of August.
We are in the middle of wildfire season, and several fires are burning out in the west. In Montana, the Big Knife Fire has scorched more than 116 acres. It is 0% contained. In Idaho, the Hayden Fire has consumed 10,000 acres. Nearly 400 firefighters are working to get that thing under control. And in Northern California, the Wonder Fire is burning near Shasta Lake. It's burned 150 acres and is 35% contained. And if you're dealing with intense heat, or if you're about to, we're looking into one way we all cool down. That's sweating. Meteorology and weather play a much bigger role in sweating than you may actually think. Meteorologist Brandon Lawson explains.
First off, our bodies like to be at 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. So anytime we get above 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, our bodies, they sweat. They sweat to cool us off. That sweat, it evaporates off our skin. Look how happy those water molecules are. When they evaporate, we get evaporative cooling. But notice, this is on a dry day where you have a lot of dry air out there. There's not a lot of water molecules in the atmosphere. So those water molecules were just able to easily evaporate off in the atmosphere, and you were able to cool down easily. That's why it's so comfortable on a low humidity day. But unfortunately, what much of the United States is going to be dealing with this week is hot and muggy conditions. So first off, we already know we're going to be hot. That's going to cause us to sweat. But the issue is with the muggy conditions, you already have so many water molecules in the atmosphere. So take a look at this. These water molecules, they're not too happy, right? It's like when you're on an elevator. I don't like being on an elevator with a bunch of people because I'm kind of claustrophobic a little bit. It's just tight spaces. And that's what the water molecules are saying here. It's like, man, I have no room to move around in the atmosphere. So what happens on this hot and muggy day? Well, our body sweats. It's going to sweat here. But unfortunately, these water molecules, they can't evaporate off into the atmosphere because there's already too many water molecules out there. Those water molecules are like, absolutely not. Nobody else is getting on this elevator. That's kind of how I am when there's a lot of people on the elevator there. So those water molecules, they obviously stay on our body, and we end up just sweating over and over again here, and that evaporation process basically fails here. So evaporative cooling fails on muggy days, and sometimes our body can heat up too much, which is why it's so important on hot and muggy days like we're going to see throughout much of this week. You want to make sure that you're taking breaks, staying hydrated, and monitoring for those symptoms of heat exhaustion and heat stroke. I'm meteorologist Brandon Lawson.
And coming up on the National Weather Desk, we'll head to Michigan to check in on this year's blueberry crop.
Hi everyone, I'm meteorologist Charlie Lopresti with a look at the Northeast. We have some fairly typical late July weather in the Northeast in the coming days, and today is going to be a beauty. Temps start in the 60s early in the day. Check out the temps in the afternoon. We should be in the 80s and possibly near 90 degrees for some areas in New York, northern New Jersey, and even southern New England. We will, however, have elevated humidity. We have a very low risk for any showers or thunderstorms today. Going to Thursday, however, we're tracking some of these storms. Some of them may become strong to severe.
I'm meteorologist Jonathan Myers, and here's a look at the mid-Atlantic region. Kind of a mild and muggy start. Temperatures quickly rising through the 70s by 9 a.m. Noontime up and down the 95 corridor, well into the 80s to near 90, and it looks like especially south, Baltimore southbound, low to mid-90s as we head into Wednesday afternoon. And this is just the beginning as fair weather high pressure builds in, likely a heat wave. That's our next weather maker. Could push near 100 by the end of the week. That's the scene here.
I'm meteorologist Vitas Reed. Here's a look at your southeast forecast high as it looks like a hot one in Nashville at 96 degrees, Birmingham 96, 91 in Pensacola, 92 Jacksonville, Tampa about 94 degrees. Starting off with plenty of sunshine for most areas. We'll continue to see that hot sun across the southeast, helping fuel up a few pop-up showers and thunderstorms through the Carolinas and Georgia. Through Florida, those afternoon showers and thunderstorms could be heavy, but then will clear up through the overnight across the southeast. It'll be warm and muggy.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
Let's start in Utah, where nature and humans held simultaneous light shows, lightning in the sky, fireworks closer to the ground, and where this sunrise multitasks as cloud and color-filled, brilliant and fiery over the Salt Lake Valley. Now to Michigan, where this busy beaver was hard at work lugging its tree branch across the road, and to Bristol, Tennessee, where the wildlife sometimes like to strike a pose.
Want to see your weather photos and videos on TV? Click Chime In on this station's website to share.
July is National Blueberry Month, and in northern Michigan, it's the perfect time to start picking those berries. Meteorologist Heather Bricka went picking and tells us how the crop looks and how the weather has impacted the harvest.
They're everywhere.
Bulldog Berries in Leelanau County has more than 20 acres of just blueberries on the farm. It's peak season for blueberry picking, and owner Nick Billings says it's hard to keep up with how many berries they have.
We have a little bit better crop this year. We didn't have a bad crop last year, But I do think we have a little bit more this year just because we pruned them harder. So we have some new, fresh, younger canes putting on a little bit larger berry.
Last week, temperatures were perfect blueberry picking weather. But these hot temperatures this week could mean trouble for the crop.
The spike in temperature when these are in their growing stage is fine. But the cool days, now that we're picking them, is actually great because we don't want to, when it's 80, 85, 90 out, these berries get hot. Then we're out there picking them, then they can sweat and again get soft. So we love them to be cool right now. I personally don't, but the berries do.
For most of the summer, we have seen abnormally dry or even drought conditions. And that means Billings has to run his irrigation even more.
It seems to be the current trend with the growing season here that during the spring, early summer months, we don't get rain. And then once the blueberries are finally on the bush and ripe, we'll get rain. And we really would like it opposite. So we have had to do a lot of supplement irrigation to get the berries to go.
Billings says that the berries have ripened so fast that they will lose some of the crop because they can't get to it fast enough. But there's plenty of ripe and ready fruit for the U-pick season.
In Maryland, crabs are a favorite food for many, but crabbers in the state are starting to worry because their traps are either coming up empty or full of something else. They say catfish are invading the area. Kim Dacey explains how the state is stepping in to help.
Let's see, we got anything in there? Nope, nothing in that one.
It's slim pickings these days for Blake Pantelich and other recreational crabbers in Pasadena.
We've had a decent amount of crabs in the beginning of the season, and then we slowly started to see it decline a little bit.
So this was in the crab trap.
Blake says that decline started a couple weeks after he took this video of 28 catfish in his crab pot. He says he has never seen that many at once.
Now, the thing about catfish is that they're voracious predators. They'll eat, and they're very opportunistic. They'll eat anything that they can,
including crabs. Mike Luisi with the State Department of Natural Resources says they're tracking the invasive blue catfish, but all catfish are part of the problem.
We do believe that catfish are likely having some level of impact on those small crabs as they're coming back after spawning into the bay. But we can't pinpoint them as being the sole reason.
The most recent dredge report in May showed a slight improvement in the number of crabs in the bay, but officials are still concerned specifically about the adult male and juvenile crab populations. As a result, they've enacted bushel limits on crabs through the end of the year, but that's not all.
For catfish, we are engaged in trying to bring develop a new program within Fishing and Boating Services to bring in some experts that are familiar with invasive species like the blue catfish and start a program to try to figure out ways to properly manage that population.
It's a staple of Maryland, and I think we have to be proactive, regarding what's going on with the catfish and preserving that crab population for sure.
The beaches of Rhode Island will soon be a little bit safer. Officials unveiled a new warning system that they hope will save lives. The new system will alert beachgoers of dangerous currents in the water. Temi-Tope has more on how the new system is going to work.
Locals know the dangers, but youngsters and first-time visitors to Connecticut Point Beach may not know the changing tide can carry them away into Narragansett Bay. There's a sign, but it's proven not to be enough.
It's like it's people that don't know the area. We all know. It's like, my gosh, this is as close as I want to be.
So Mayor Frank Picozzi and others developed a computerized warning system. It costs less than $1,000.
The tide schedule's been downloaded into the program, and working with Captain Hart and Captain Vale, they've identified the crucial times when, with a very large margin for safety, of when people need to start leaving.
Here's how it works. When the tide changes and the water starts to rush up Narragansett Bay, a siren will go off, followed by a repeated announcement telling people to stay off the sandbar where people get washed away. There will also be flashing police lights mounted on poles at the end of the sandbar and signs with graphics telling people to stay off the sandbar. That announcement will be in 3 languages: English, Portuguese, and Spanish.
Doppler radar is one of the most important tools meteorologists use when tracking weather, but coverage can be spotty depending on how far a system is from the radar. Charleston meteorologist Cheriton Clark spoke to officials about what they are doing to improve radar reliability.
Northwest Berkeley County by Lake Moultrie is the ideal environment for quick spin-ups.
And the water heats a lot slower than the land does, so it creates what's called a lake breeze. That will create a little boundary that maybe sits near in and around the lake, interacts with other boundaries from other storms maybe coming into the area. They collide together, they make air move up and sometimes spin as it moves up, which is a component to try to develop a tornado or a water spout.
That area is also far from the 3 radars that cover the low country. That limits the detection of potentially dangerous weather.
So as radar is shooting further and further away, it's shooting higher and higher up in the atmosphere. A lot of things, including funnel clouds and tornadoes, happen below that we cannot actually see directly.
Sometimes there are clues higher in the atmosphere.
But what we can see is the parent circulation up higher, if there is one, that we can infer what's going on underneath, and that's what we do.
But a solution could be coming.
The only way around that is to put more radars in. You may have heard of gap-filling radars, and Weather Service is actually working on a thing to help with that.
In the meantime, even with the best computers and scientists, sometimes your best bet is to keep your eyes to the sky.
You know, we're all at the mercy of technology. And that's why the more you know about your environment and not rely on any one particular thing, you put all of those pieces together. You know what? I know what to look at when I'm looking outside, and that sky doesn't look right. I think I'm going to take cover, right? Whether there's a warning or not.
The U.S. Women's World Cup team is back on the pitch tonight. They take on a tough Netherlands team at 9 p.m. Eastern. That's 1 p.m. tomorrow in New Zealand. And the weather in Wellington will be gusty and cool with a spot shower. Those winds could be blowing at 20 miles an hour. Temperatures should be in the mid-50s. Good luck to the U.S. women. If you're looking for some more great weather content, check out our podcast, Off the Radar. New episodes drop every Tuesday. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be right back.
Well, good Wednesday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buck-Michael taking a look at your weather story across the Midwest. If you're not in the triple digits today, you are going to be really close across a lot of the plains here. We're looking at 90s pretty much everywhere. We got some 80s across the Great Lakes, and triple digit temperatures continue to just either make their way in or you're so close to it for the coming days here. Some afternoon pop-up showers and storms possible, and that heat and humidity serious. So make sure to take that heat serious as we head through the coming days.
Good morning, I'm meteorologist Alex Garcia. Here's a look at your regional weather. A little toasty to start. We're almost 80 degrees down into South Texas, definitely 80 back up into Oklahoma. Be watching a little bit of a trough line. That could fire up some rain, bring some clouds up to the north, cooling us down. We'll watch that sea breeze action as it gets started right up along the Texas-Louisiana coast. Otherwise, temperatures will be warming up again into triple digits. I'm meteorologist Alex Garcia. That's a look at your regional weather.
Well, hi there, everybody, and happy Wednesday to you. I'm meteorologist Shannon O'Donnell. This heat is just endless in the desert Southwest. A month or so where we've been at 110, if not higher, every single day in Phoenix. That goes for today with 118. Monsoonal moisture trying to get started. It's a little late in coming in the Valley of the Sun this year. 95 in Reno, a perfect 76 in Seattle. And again, a chance for thunderstorms bubbling up over the Rockies this afternoon. And that's the scene from here.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
This past weekend, 2 people in Texas were struck by lightning and survived. Maya Caleb has more on their tale of survival that defies the odds.
George Murray recounts his version of events after lightning struck at a neighbor's house on Friday.
He was hollering, Ronnie was hollering for his grandson to pick him up, straighten him up, and he couldn't, because he couldn't feel his hand or his arm, his leg.
Murray wasn't directly hit, but he was knocked down by the impact.
They went black, and my head was just, it's hard to explain, but my head was just kind of swimming.
Damian Gonzalez says he worried that the lightning killed his grandfather.
It paralyzed him from like the waist down and most of the upper body completely.
He's also had issues with his hearing since.
It's muffled, like it feels like I have swimming's ear.
His grandfather is still recovering from his injuries after directly being hit.
He had his shoes and his socks blown off, and his clothes had tears all in them.
Gonzalez and Murray say while they've never experienced anything like this, they are grateful to be alive and to be able to share their stories.
Thank you so much for joining us. We'll leave you with views of Hawaii from above. I'm Angela Brown. Make it a great Wednesday, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.